So, as you guys know, I've been planning to do a video talk on a classification system that I've been planning out for like months now, but it hasn't been happening because I wanted to cover other basics of Fire Emblem before I did that. So, we're going to continue on with that today, and today we're going to be talking about the classes. Now, I'm going to focus on Awakening for the purposes of these videos for the most part because I want to help the people who are playing Awakening, for the first time since that's getting a lot of new players into the series. So I thought we'd talk about, like I said, the class system in Awakening because it's a little confusing even for, veterans like me because until I started playing the game, I didn't really understand what was going on exactly, how to do things, and even then I still had to look up some stuff. So I'm here to tell you guys the basics of how to use the class change system. Alright, so the first thing you need to know is that this game works kind of similar to Sacred Stones. If you played that game, you'll know what to expect. When a unit reaches level 10 or higher, up to a maximum of level 20, they can use an item called a Master Seal to change classes into one of two different promoted classes. That's the general term we use for classes that come after the base ones, promoted or advanced classes. These can be any number of different things. For example, a Myrmidon, which is a sword-using unit, can either promote into a Sword Master or an Assassin. Pegasus Knights have weird options that both involve magic and so on and so forth. They always give you exactly two options when classing up. Now, it works a little differently for special units like Manikites and Togwells, but we're going to focus on the humans for the most part. I'll touch on the other ones later. So, you have two choices when classing up, and each will determine what different stats you get, and so on and so forth. Now, after level 10, you can also use an item called a Second Seal. Now, this item is a little different because instead of promoting you to a higher tier, it changes your class to another class at the same tier that you're currently at. So, a Myrmidon could, for example, change into an Archer or something similar. But each character is limited to two other classes. Now, most of them are determined by their personality. Like this one girl, for instance, is kind of a defensive chick who is all secretive, so she can be a dark mage, an archer, or a knight, which all makes sense for her personality. It's also restricted by gender sometimes, so like some girly ones can't be used by guys and so forth. But in general, they'll have two options, and each of those classes can also promote into a higher level class into two different ones. So in total, almost all the main characters in Fire Emblem Awakening will have a choice of 6 different promoted classes. Now that's a lot, especially when you factor in all the possible skills that they could learn from those various classes. So it can get kind of confusing, which is why I'm going to do a series later on about the characters themselves and what the best path to take for each character is. Now, to make it even a little more complicated, some classes like your My unit or Avatar class and all of the DLC units for some reason have access to every single class that is not gender restricted or species restricted. So that means your main character can be almost any class you want them to be, which makes building that character even crazier. Now, the important things you need to know when changing classes themselves is that when you promote a unit to a higher class, you will usually get less experience in fights because you're more powerful, and you become, more powerful, you get less experience, but you gain access to new weapon types, you gain access to all kinds of helpful things, especially like more powerful skills as well. Now, if you change to a different class using a Second Seal, it will also modify your stats, but in a different way. It'll actually end up changing the difference in base stats for the classes. So it's not really important to know exactly what that means, but the gist of it is if you change from Knight, a really slow defensive class, into a faster, more agile class such as Pegasus Knight or Myrmidon, you will get a large boost in speed at the cost of a lot of your defense. Now, this change is not exactly temporary, but you can change it back and forth, and the bonuses are the same, and the penalties are the same either way, so it's not like you're losing anything permanently, okay? It's just a change in the basic attributes of that character. Okay, so last really important thing you need to know about this is that when you change classes, your growth rates also change. Let me make sure you understand what that means. That means the chance for each stat you have to go up, at some percentage from anywhere from 15 to 100 and plus. If it's above 100, by the way, it can actually has the chance. It'll always go up by 1, and it has the chance to go up by 2. And I've actually had that happen with 1 or 2 of my characters. It's pretty crazy. Usually only with HP, though. Anyway, so the important thing to note is that when they change classes, their growth rates will also change, because the character's total growth rates are based on a set of growth rates that is individual to each character, but then each class has its own growth rates that are then added onto that character's growth rates. Now, this means a number of things, but more specifically and more helpfully, it means if your character is lacking in any particular stat, you can change them to a class that has a better growth rate in that stat and compensate for it. Or you can make a character have ridiculously high speed by changing them to an even faster class, and that's just always a positive. That's just something you should keep in mind. Now, this is very powerful, and I highly recommend using it to great effect. In fact, switch hands. I use it. I'll talk about doing this a lot more in my character guides series. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot. I was going to talk about Manikites and Togwells too. Now they're kind of strange because they go up to level 30 and don't ever promote. If you try to use a Master Seal, it'll have no effect. It's not going to waste the item, it just won't let you do it. So what do you do with these characters then for class changing? For some reason, the game decided to give them 2 set classes that they can go to like all the other characters. Any Togwell or Manikete can go into either a Thief or a Wyvern Lord, which still gives them a good range of choices, and Wyvern Lords are Wyvern Riders are the normal lower level class, and both of them are pretty helpful and powerful, so I'm kind of scared by those classes, honestly. But anyway, so if you use a second seal on one of those 2 racial classes any time before level 30, it will change it into one of the pre-promoted classes like Wyvern Rider or Thief. Now, if you use it once they're at level 30, you can still change it to one of the lower level ones, but it'll also give you the option to change directly into one of the promoted classes like Wyvern Lord or Assassin or Trickster or Griffin Rider. This is a pretty powerful ability, and I've already done it once or twice, and I highly recommend doing it that way, but honestly, you could just change them once they get to level 10. Okay, that reminds me, I forgot to mention, for other promoted classes, once you get to level 10 in the advanced class, you can use a second seal on them to change to any of the other advanced classes that they have access to through the other classes. Like, for instance, if a Pegasus Knight, which can also be an archer, turned into a Falcon Knight, then it can use a second seal at level 10 to turn into a Sniper, which is the upgrade of Archer. So you see, it can be a very helpful tool to navigating the paths very quickly. As a last note, I already said last note like 3 times, but I feel like I should also mention that the skills in a class are very important. You always learn a skill in the pre-promoted classes at levels 1 and 10. This is important because it's actually not that important, because if you're in that class, you have to get to level 10 before you do anything, so you'll just get these automatically. Now, for the promoted classes, you get them at level 5 and level 15. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, oh wait, I can class change before level 15, and you'd be right, which is something to consider, because when you're trying to figure out when you want to change classes, generally, if you're using a Master Seal, wait until they're level 20, just because you'll get them more experience and more level ups, and it's just good all around. If you're trying to change their class, the best time would generally be from levels 10 to 14, depending on when you have the opportunity. Really, level 10 is fine, honestly. But once you're in a promoted class, You should use the second seal at level 10 unless you want the skill at level 15, in which case you should definitely wait for it because you're probably not going to be going through that class again. I'll post a link in the description for a chart from Serenes Forest that has all the skills, and it just shows you what you need to do to get each of them, and it's really helpful. I highly recommend it. Thanks for watching, guys. This has been another Fire Emblem rant with Jacob, and tune in soon to see some DLC reviews and character guides. See you later.